Alright, everybody. We got a video to watch today, and I honestly feel like there's no better way for us to celebrate International Women's Day than to call out a woman on YouTube. There's really no better way I'd rather spend International Women's Day. Now, this content creator recently put out a video about 12 days ago. It's picking up a decent amount of steam, and her channel's getting, fairly large. The channel's called The Unpopular Opinion with Sarah. And I think you can imagine that a channel name with the unpopular opinion in the title probably means we're really going to hear a lot of unpopular opinions, right? I'm sure it won't just be a bunch of standard conservative edgelord takes that most people on the internet, on YouTube, who would click on that video would totally agree with and just soy clap over. But we'll have to see. I've not watched this video yet. I always watch these videos completely blind. Sorry, I can't talk today, and for some reason I can't seem to go 5 minutes without my nose itching today, which is pretty strange. Regardless, though, I feel before we actually watch this video itself, why I'm leaving the left. I'm sure this lady was actually part of the left, and we're not gonna have people digging into her history and, oh, it turns out she was never really a part of the left and this is just a clear grift. I'm sure that's not what's going to happen. Regardless, let's take a look at this. As a conservative man, I don't understand how you as a woman can have any personal opinion. Your place is in the kitchen where you belong as the weak gender. You should serve to your husband and keep quiet. As a conservative woman, you should know that loud women are sinful and will burn in hell. Fire emoji. So yeah, she's getting an interesting response from her video. I think she's starting to realize, oh shit, you really do have to sell your soul to be a conservative woman online, because, it's not just that you have to watch as everybody you associate with in your own content bolsters policy, beliefs, and ideas that are, directly harmful to your existence, and the existence of, many other innocent people, but also, you are going to be, you're going to be subjected to some really fucked up shit, right? I think it was Lauren Southern who basically leaked the DMs that she was getting from Paul Joseph Watson, and it's like PJW just sexually harassing her and acting like a complete fucking loser. I get it, Lauren Southern isn't great. Alright, Lauren Southern's an alt-writer, but oh, Jesus Christ. My whole everything just closed because I moved a thing. You ever, move a window on Windows and it just closes fucking everything? That's what just happened to me, chat. That was annoying. I know Lauren Southern's an alt-writer and all that, but I don't think sexual harassment against women is good, And I'm just calling it out here, right? She exposed Paul Joseph Watson, and it was, really cringe, sexual harassy, nice guy rejected, then gets mad and starts calling out the woman's appearance kind of shit. And that was one of many instances that Lauren Southern dealt with. Women on the right, if they're in the media circuit, are not treated well. You really gotta be able to go through a lot of abuse and be able to cut yourself off from it to grift, and to do this grift. It's not easy. Say what you will. Whoa, okay, chill out. Not yet. Say what you will, but this grift isn't as easy as you might imagine. Anyway, let's take a look at this video. It's 44 minutes long, so it's a little bit on the longer side. And because of that, I am going to speed it up ever so slightly. Very, very slightly. Just 1.25 speed. It's not going to have much of an effect. It's just going to help speed up some of the pauses and whatnot, and it's going to help this not be a ridiculously long segment. Alright. Let's begin.
Tell me why I am so nervous making this video, and why my heart is literally pounding uploading it. But for the first time, I feel like it is a necessary video. I think that I want to respect you enough to know where you stand and who you
For the record, this is a completely blind watch through. I have no idea if this is good faith or not. Like, it's very possible this is somebody who has for a long time held ostensibly left-wing positions and has just recently started getting into like really getting into politics and has now been caught up in like a bunch of right-wing propaganda. Because as I've said a lot, right now, and for a very long time, but particularly now, the right's motivation and the right's main strategy online has been to flood the algorithms on social media with as much of their own content as possible, so that if somebody who is young and, politically uninitiated wants to get online and get into politics, the first thing they're going to find is conservatism. They'll stumble across conservatism, which specifically tells them, like, any right-wing content you watch basically, at least implicitly, tells you shouldn't even give left-wing ideas a chance. Don't listen to them, don't actually think about them, don't go watch their videos and take them seriously, only really go there to at most leave a hate comment. That's generally how right-wing media figures encourage their audiences to engage with left-wing ideas. And there's a chance that's where she is, but people in chat are saying she was a TERF before this. So it sounds like she was never really left-wing at all. It sounds like, chances are, much like most TERFs, she was just kind of just like a girl boss woman supremacist a little bit. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, they're not quite right-wing, and they're not quite left-wing. They just kind of hate men and think women are better. A good example of this is Lavloon. You guys might have heard of her. She's kind of relevant in this space right now because she was a Destiny orbiter, but then it turns out she's a massive liar. She even tried to get into my orbit by messaging me, "Oh, I'm a big fan. Oh my god, you followed me back. I'm fangirling." Didn't really happen, but yeah. Ended up calling her out for being a TERF, so that's a kind of a good example of who I'm talking about. I know a lot of you guys are aware of this person because of the Destiny drama, so imagine that, right? Oh, these people also tend to love that Jodi Arias. Is that her name? Did I get her name right? The not serial killer, the murderer. The lady who murdered her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend. These TERFs, these particular radfem TERFs, worship that woman. They worship that woman. They think of her as an idol. They'll use her and her name as their profile picture and name on Twitter and stuff like that. So yeah, she might have been somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe not as extreme, but maybe in that ballpark. And then that was her conception of wokeness in the left. And now she's leaving that and becoming a conservative, or maybe she's going further into that and realizing she was never left-wing in the first place and changing her label. I don't know. But if this seems good faith, I'd absolutely be willing to take it on in good faith, and I'd absolutely be down to have her on stream to talk. That could be interesting.
You are watching, and I also want to respect myself enough to understand that this is a big part of
She's tatted the fuck up, though. I'll give her that. Those are some good tats.
me growing up. I am approaching 25, and I think that these are the values and morals that I have thought about, I have debated on, I have really came to understand through therapy and through self-reflection, and these are the values that I want to take into my marriage and take into my family life, and I think that it is very important. And so I think that for the first time, I am okay with the impending consequences of that and the way I'm going to receive backlash, and I'm okay with that. What I've decided to do is just have one comprehensive video.
I will say, where is she from? I can't pin that accent, but does anybody know where she's from? I assume this is public. I feel like she might have made it public. Obviously, no doxed information. Don't say if it's not public, she hasn't said it. Because something you might realize, or something I've realized through doing online, political stuff, is that what country someone comes from can play a big part in how they view American politics. So the online culture war is so heavily centered around American politics. There's some British politics and Canadian politics in there, but the internet culture war that 90% of the relevant figures online who do politics are talking about is America. Or if they do talk about other stuff, it's meant to tie back into a narrative they have about America. And so if you live in a country like Sweden, and you've grown up in a country like Sweden your whole life, chances are you don't have any you have less idea about American, like, racism and the history of that than an American, like, school kid does, with how shitty our education is in regards to that, because it's just not their country. They don't know it culturally and whatnot. I think there's a lot of examples in Sweden also of, like, weird cultural things that are kind of weird if you're looking at it from a sort of woke perspective in regards to race. Yeah, it's like if you're like a Swedish person online and you go onto the internet and you get involved in this culture war stuff so heavily centered around America, your entire perception of it is filtered through the culture war online, which it inherently tends to lean pretty right wing. So for all we know, this lady's entire political media consumption is just like right wing, like, misshapings and warpings of reality in America. I just want to throw that out there. It's something to consider.
Where you can refer to it and then decide whether or not you would like to, going forward, listen to my opinions and stick around, or if you'd like to not do that. And as I said before, that this is a blessing for me to have been on this journey and to be able to have this platform. And regardless of if, I have one person listening or 2 people or 5 people, I'm probably going to carry on with it in my free time, and I'm probably going to be much happier because I'm going to be able to talk about things that I find interesting and crucial with the morals that I want to carry on into, as I said, my life, my marriage, my adulthood. And I think that this whole process is going to make me feel a lot more free, and I value that beyond anything. And so if you would like to stick around and listen, then I really appreciate that. And I'm just going to talk about this as if you don't know me, as if this is...
People in chat are telling me this person has engaged in, like, harassment against people and stuff. So apparently this person has a fairly shoddy history. Like, they don't have a very clean... They're not working with a very clean slate. Oh, she's married, that's why she's a problem? No, come on, chat. Like, I get that there's this sort of negativity on the left around marriage, especially at a younger age, but I do think if it's the right situation, getting, Amberlynn Reed? Okay, so that's who she was harassing. I do think it's like, there's nothing wrong with getting married if that's what you want to do and the circumstances are right for it. And it's like, the correct decision to make, practically speaking, and you want to, and both parties are happy. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting married. My problem is there's this sort of trend that we've been seeing of these, like, very clearly grifting e-girls that go online and do this sort of, like, pseudo-sexualized trad girl LARP. Like, they wear clearly sexualized clothing, but it's meant to be sort of evocative of, like, the 1950s, 1960s, mid-century American housewife. But it's not that. It's more sexualized than that. Like, it's very clear that they bought, like, an outfit online that's meant to be, like, a more revealing and, like, sexualized version of that, which is fine. But then they go on Twitter and they post a video of them doing something like, I don't know, like rolling out some dough, some, like, baking dough with a rolling pin. And it's like, #free Tate, this is what a real woman should be doing, right? And it's like, tons of Andrew Tate stans liking the post, being like, yeah, at least there's some women who know what's up out there. And it's like, do you not realize that you are being manipulated? That this lady heard Andrew Tate talk about OnlyFans girls scamming desperate men, realized, holy shit, there's no men more desperate than Andrew Tate fans, and then took advantage of you. That's what they're doing, those women. The e-girl trad wife free Tate conservatives on Twitter that are going viral lately, that's literally what they're doing. They heard Andrew Tate lying about OnlyFans girls and decided to do that, but slightly more subtly. Not saying that's what she's doing, but, just saying it's a thing I've seen.
This is the first time seeing my video, and I'm going to give you a little overview of everything I've been through. And I do think that it is unbelievably crucial to me, not only because of the reasons, as I said, it's going to make me feel like I can express myself a lot clearer and more eloquent and freely, which I think, what a blessing to have in a Western country, right? And so if you are interested, here's a little story beginning to right now of how I grew up very left-leaning. not understanding anything about politics and not particularly being involved in politics at all, to now at 25 still not being involved in politics, still not associating myself with one particular group. However, I have made the decision.
Okay, if you are a political figure and you don't want to ascribe yourself to a group, there are two possibilities. The most likely possibility is you're a grifter whose fence sitting is to, keep the largest and broadest audience as possible happy and paying you and watching your videos and giving you, views. Or you do not have enough basic knowledge and historical context to this all of politics to be involved, right? Like once you reach a certain amount of historical contextual understanding of particularly American politics, very quickly you realize that it has been a continued cycle of the same type of people, conservatives, just trying to fuck over minority groups, just trying to survive and do their thing while maintaining their own power and wealth, and then doing every evil thing in their power to achieve that, maybe failing or losing some ground, but they always succeed in kind of covering up what they did so the next generation continues to support people just like them.
To present as far away from the left as almost humanly possible, because I cannot anymore take the insanity and the contradiction and the wokeness anymore. So if this is the first time of you seeing me, hi, my name is Sarah and I am originally from Poland. I have moved here in about 2009 when I was still very young, and I have always grown up very removed from politics. My family never really spoke about politics. I was not ever involved in these discussions, and so to this day I have no idea what my parents identify as in terms of politics and what kinds of things they vote for, so I'm pretty okay with saying that I was never influenced from a young age to be anything. When it comes to which political side I am on, my parents were always very encouraging of me.
So something I should mention, by the way, is because there's a chance this YouTuber watches my video because my channel's larger than hers. I want to be clear here. If it seems like I'm being uncharitable here, I want to clarify that right now we are in an unprecedented state. Well, not really unprecedented. I did actually call it like years ago. We are in a quite precedented state of conservative media control online. Much of it has been done artificially by very large dark money organizations such as the Daily Wire that have paid a lot of fucking money to flood YouTube with advertisements for their YouTubers that they employ, like Ben Shapiro, or, even more so the ones who they've like literally astroturfed into being, into having a career, like Brett Cooper and Abby Shapiro, who kind of, wasn't the biggest success on their part, but, like, they've been doing this for a long time. And so right now, considering we're in this state of, particular conservative media control on like the culture online, I think you can imagine why one might be a little bit quick to assume that somebody coming along and saying, oh, I'm leaving the left and becoming a conservative now for a YouTube video might be disingenuous and just following the money. Because right now, that is where the money is, right? The money is in being a conservative at the moment.
To find out things by myself and read a lot and be inquisitive, and I think that's why they inspired me to be the person I am today, in terms of constantly wanting to learn, constantly going further, constantly do something more, and I think that's absolutely great. So I'm pretty confident in saying that I remember nothing about any kind of political leaning from my youth. However, when I came here in 2009, I started realizing that there's people who have a certain identity and they rely very heavily on that. It's a big part of their identity. And I think that a lot of people are very passionate about the things that they do. When I was 16 or 17, I went to do my A-levels. And for those of you who don't know,
she's going to talk about sexuality and gender identity, isn't she? I'm going to point something out that's very basic, I guess, but I feel like considering the state of, like, we're literally in Gamergate 2 right now. The prophecies have foretold this for many years. So I guess we need to kind of, like, dumb our arguments back down to the level of, like, what bread-pilled people back during Gamergate. Like, we gotta kind of bring things back a little closer to earth, you know? Have you guys noticed that people only ever say gay people make everything and their entire personality about their sexuality? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like if you actually look for it, and people only actually look for it when it comes to non-straight people or non-cis people, cis people and straight people make their sexuality and their gender identity part of their personality quite often. You got the Vosh host? Hell yeah, thank you. Vosh, if you're watching right now. I'm glad the cats are doing better. Or the cat is doing better. Yeah, so look at, like, any boomer humor, for example. A lot of it is about, hell, this woman has already mentioned she's getting married multiple times. Like, being straight is a huge part of straight people's personalities. Talking about being into women if you're a straight guy, talking about being into guys if you're a woman, watching romantic movies or like romance comedies or whatever that are about like whatever like that you look at and you're like, oh, I want a relationship like that or whatever, you know, like you never really think about it if it's a straight person or a cis person, but those groups absolutely make their personalities all about their identity. But no one's looking for that or thinks about it if they're straight or cis, because that's normal. That's just the baseline. No one, you don't think about it. That's just a normal person. The only time you start to think about it is if you meet a gay person, and even if they're, you know, acting and talking about, you know, anything tangential to their being gay, as much as any straight person would talk about things tangential to being straight, you don't notice it, right? When a gay guy mentions my boyfriend, that's gonna click to you. But if a straight woman says my husband, that doesn't really stand out. That's not... On one hand, you might see that as a gay person making their entire personality or just making the conversation about their sexuality, but when it's a straight person talking about their straight relationship, it's not seen that way. You don't even think about it. It doesn't even cross your mind. You don't even think about gay people. It's an example of internalized bigotry. And unfortunately, when you call this kind of stuff out, I have a feeling people like this kind of get upset because they feel like you're attacking them by saying they have something like internalized bigotry. They're like, oh, you think I have internalized bigotry? You think I'm a bad person? No, I don't think you're a bad person. I just think, you know, everybody kind of has their own sort of beliefs that they grew up with, and, you know, not everyone is correct or holds the correct set of values or the most correct set of sensibilities on certain issues. There's always room to grow, you know, and that's ideally what the left encourages. At least what my community encourages. Hey, Apillo, I'm glad to hear you're done with homework.
Oh, that's like, you know, obviously high school education, I think. And I took sociology for 2 years and psychology for 2 years. That's when my journey began. And I think one of the most influential classes there was sociology. I loved it. I never ended up doing anything with it because I couldn't see myself kind of, you know, progressing in the field, but I was very good at it. I think that was the only thing that I was good at as well as being passionate about. And I loved the discussions that we had because it was such a safe space with so many different people. I mean, there was one dude in our class who I remember told me to repent because I was holding hands with my boyfriend at the time in the corridor. And even he was allowed to speak clearly and respectfully, even though there was such a huge divide, and everyone thought he was a little bit crazy because he had such deep religious roots, and, you know, he was almost like rude at sometimes, but he still was able to.
Okay. Can you kind of see an example of what I'm talking about here? Literally had a religious guy demand that she repent for holding hands with a girl in a from what I understand, a non-romantic context, and it's like, well, he was just kind of quirky, you know? Like, no, that guy, to the core, believes that the ruler of the universe, who determines your entire eternal fate, believes that you are an abomination if you do that behavior. And is speaking out of turn, in my opinion, to voice his opinion on it. Like, that's not, oh, he's just kind of quirky and weird. That guy thinks you're gonna burn in hell for eternity for what you're doing, for holding your friend's hand. Like, I feel like this is something that a lot of like centrist libs don't really think about when it comes to like a lot of like the real true believers in religion. Like if they're a true believer and they say some shit like that, you got to think about the implications of what they're saying, what they believe to be true. You're like, if you're not a Christian, you don't know the context. Like this is somebody, if they're like a true believer, they believe in some insane magic shit, okay? And you got to consider that as one of their motivations when they do or say things to you.
To speak freely without being harassed or belittled or anything like that, even though
Did the Reddit atheists have a point? They always did, to an extent.
he could offend people and he could make people feel uncomfortable. But I really valued that in that class. As soon as you left that classroom, you left all of your feelings behind. And you had almost like a total reset. And I really valued that.
I do think that it's good to have a space where people can just absolutely duke it out, like mentally speaking, you know? Like argue, let their opinions and beliefs clash and everything. I think that's absolutely a good thing. One thing that I don't like is that conservatives just kind of they tend to glorify this idea of a completely no rules, no safe space society in which everybody is just able to completely ignore being triggered, ignore people who don't agree with them, and everybody gets to have their own ideas. The problem is, particularly right now here in America, those that believe, whose ideas are that certain groups of people that just want to exist shouldn't be allowed to, are gaining power because they're far more motivated to take away the rights from those, minority groups they don't like than people who are just kind of live and let live are motivated to continue to keep things as they are or even make them better. Like, trust me, the bigots are way more motivated.
I like that we could speak and we could tell our, teachers and colleagues like different opinions, that we had different perspectives, and I think that was great. And I remember one of the discussions was between me and a couple of other friends and the teacher, and she was basically proposing like, why wouldn't you want to live in a capitalist like society? Like, why wouldn't you want to, have everyone be equal? And I remember thinking that is so crazy. I remember thinking, how could you ever hear about this and even consider it? Because coming from someone who's
I hope I heard her right. Why wouldn't you want to live in a capitalist society where everyone is equal? I'm sorry, but I don't even think the most ardent capitalist economics, like solid yellow bottom right quadrant on the political compass, like libertarian flag up, stock trading, crypto bros, I don't think even they would say that everyone is equal under capitalism. No capitalist would even say, no ardent defender of capitalism even, no, not even the most deranged ardent defender of capitalism that I can imagine would ever say, under capitalism everyone's equal. The core tenets of capitalism require hierarchy. There has to be hierarchy for capitalism to work. That's how it works.
mom still remembers what communism was like in Poland, to come into someone who has never experienced it and has just learned about it, and it's like, why wouldn't you want that? That's so great. I couldn't fathom it. It couldn't fit into my brain that someone just suggested that a neurosurgeon and a cleaner, or a neurosurgeon and a mechanic, could be paid the same and be compensated the same for the jobs that was so completely different. It was so insane to me. I have never met anyone from my country, or even I have Ukrainian friends, can say that the parents or the family or anyone remembers communism in a favourable light. I have never met, and again, coming from my grandparents.
Oh, she misspoke? Okay, so I think she meant socialism or communism, everyone's equal. Okay, so, to be clear, the Soviet Union was not communist. The communist, by definition, is when there is no state, there's no private property, like that there's no money, like that was not the case in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union wasn't even socialism. As far as I'm aware, there wasn't really any worker ownership of the means of production. In fact, the government was forcing people out of certain jobs and into other ones. They forced farmers and people who worked in the fields to help with production of food into factories to try to rapidly industrialize the Soviet Union. Problem is, this meant that you had a bunch of people who were working in factories, a lot of people working in the fields, which on its own might not be too big of a deal, but then there was a big famine. like a big drought came along, and it just there was like really bad conditions for growing, and there was a big famine. And so what did the Soviet Union do? What did Stalin do? Used this famine as an opportunity to basically starve out the Ukrainians. This is called the Holodomor, or Holodomor. There's a lot of people pronounce it different ways. I don't know the proper pronunciation. They specifically took food from the Ukrainians to redistribute them into Russian cities to Russian citizens. It was a genocide, essentially. Even if it wasn't like lining people up and shooting them in the head, taking their food away and leaving them to starve. I mean, you're killing them in a more indirect way. That's genocidal. So yeah, not socialism, not communism. Yeah. Glad I could clear that up.
Parents, my parents, their parents, you know, the cousins, the uncles, no one ever sits down and thinks that was a good time in our life, that was a great time for our country. No one. And so it was so crazy for me to hear that. And so I started growing up, I started maturing, and I started looking at the people around me and realizing that a lot of people are self-censoring. A lot of people are not saying the things that they really feel when they are in the friend group because they're scared that the friend group's going to turn on them. And I was
are manners like only an American thing? Is the concept of politeness and manners only an American invention? Does it not exist outside of the borders of America? Because I feel like it's a pretty universal understanding that when you're in a social setting or a friend group or something, that maybe you might have a negative thought or opinion, like a marginally negative thought or opinion about somebody, maybe even an offensive one, that you ought not air, as it would kind of sour the social situation. Like, maybe you think a new piercing your friend has looks kind of ugly, but it's not really worth hurting their feelings over by saying it. Maybe they've got a pimple on their face that, like, is very obvious, and, you know, it's like, hey, like, you don't call it out or point it out, even though everyone knows it's there, it's an elephant in the room, so to say, because it's rude to do so. I feel like this is a pretty universal experience. Are manners not a thing outside of America? I was raised, like, taught, you know, that you should have manners and treat people with respect. But although, to be fair, this is pretty in line with conservative ideology. As I've mentioned many, many times at this point, conservatives, specifically when it comes to minorities and people on the left, consider cruelty and malice to be a virtue. Hurting a lefty or a minority's feelings, particularly on the grounds of being a lefty or a minority, is a virtuous action. Hurting feelings is like a good thing to do, because doing cruel actions is considered like a macho, tough, lib-owning, anti-nanny state, some of them will say. Like, there's a lot of words they have for it. They see kindness and the growth of kindness in society as sort of like a poison that is making everyone more susceptible to left-wing beliefs. Their ideal society is one in which everybody kind of... It's really hard to say. I mean, some conservatives will try to picture their ideal society as one in which everybody is sort of a church-going, happy-go-lucky, hi, neighbor, you know, white picket fence neighborhood and everything. But the way they act is like living far off from anybody else in the country with lots of guns, oftentimes raising their families like a militia. You know, like they don't even try to live the life they idealize. So it's like, no, the life these people are actually trying to reach is one of suffering and boredom and misery.
The first time I was like, this is a little bit weird. I didn't realize that there was like a right opinion. I thought that we could just all get along. And, you know, I have had my entire life had friends who were very conservative, and I had friends who were very, very liberal, or that they were, you know, Tories and Labour, I believe, and they were all friends together. And I had, you know, people who openly were like, oh yeah, so basically my dad's...
Wait, Tories aren't liberal, are they? The Tories are right-wing, right? I know Labour are left-wing. It's like the Green Party and Labour are left-wing, and Tories and Brexit, the what's it called? The Brexit Party, like UKIP. There's a Conservative Party, literally called the Conservative Party, I think. I'm not very caught up on my England lore. Once I visit England and I see for myself that it's a real place, I'll be able to take its history a little more seriously, and I'll be able to commit more of it to memory.
Really rich, and we are a Tory family, so we're gonna vote for, you know, whoever benefits us. And my Labour friends were like, that's great, I am not from a rich family and I don't hold the same values and beliefs as you, but you're still my friend, even though I'm going to vote completely different. And I thought that was normal. I thought that everyone's going to just get on and get along, even though they have different opinions. I didn't realise that that was such a big divisive factor in a lot of people's lives. I didn't realise that because I was always around people.
Well, because in a lot of cases, at least here politically, there's a party that believes that a certain group of minorities shouldn't be allowed to exist or publicly, like, be allowed to express themselves, while the other party thinks those people shouldn't be able to take away that group's rights. So yeah, people are a little bit on edge when it comes to politics. It's so bizarre to me when these Zoomers, and yes, this lady is a Zoomer, she's 25 years old, but that's still Zoomer. Like, when these fucking Zoomers, and I'm a Zoomer too, I'm younger than her, when these fucking Zoomers act like they're oblivious to the idea that politics is and has always been a touchy subject. Like, when they were kids, have they never been told by their parents, hey, when we have your friend's family over for dinner, don't bring up politics at the dinner table, or it'll start an argument, right? Like, because it's touchy. This has always been the case. There's not like some new level of like, man, the left really just can't handle disagreement all of a sudden. It's like, no, people have always been super on edge when it comes to politics. And religion, ironically. Both those things are like the two untouchable topics if you're trying to have a nice family dinner.
Who spoke freely and openly about the beliefs, and no one was at each other's throats. So I went to university, I met my best friend, and I am so happy that I did. The reason is because she is a little bit older than me, and I am so forever grateful for the sped up development that I experienced whilst being friends with her. She could get my brain going like no one else could. She was constantly challenging my perspectives, bringing in very important conversations that I never thought about before. She had a great way of talking, debating, and making you question what you think and question what you believe, and it's a great thing.
Yes, it's sped up very slightly, Fefala.
It's such a valuable characteristic to have in my friends, and I really love that. I love having friends of different opinions.
Okay, this is a little bit boring. Come on, let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's see some interesting stuff.
Of therapy and working out and prioritizing this person's health, mental health and physical health, and putting forward a plan as to what this person needs, whether that be medical transition or whether that be intensive therapy. That's what I was taught. But now, apparently that makes you a medicalist and a bigot because you deny people who identify as trans to simply go in and have surgeries and have transition without prior diagnosis.
So we're okay. This took a turn very quickly. Oh, she trans med? Haha. Alright. Here's the thing about transmedicalism. To many people, I actually think so far from what I've seen, this woman is probably acting in good faith. Guys, I know she's cringe, but I think she's actually acting in good faith. Many people who are just kind of getting into learning about trans people will oftentimes be introduced initially to the transmedicalist perspective. It is typically the most accessible in to understanding trans people. It's not perfect, but there is truth in the transmedical. Well, more so, the transmedicalist perspective is an incomplete perspective of like the trans, body of information around trans people that one should generally know. But it's a good in, and I think that's where she made it, and because that was where she was, and she hadn't really made it any further into sort of her understanding of these things, her unfleshed out, non-fleshed out perspective on, trans identity was met with some hostility, and now she's responding to that hostility with sort of, moving her political stances a little bit, which is unfortunate because I really don't think that's necessary. I'm going to clear some things up very quickly. There is not an epidemic of kids or even adults walking into gender clinics and just saying, I am trans, or I think I'm trans, and walking out with a bottle of hormones, or hell, even getting in and getting surgery. As far as I'm aware, every developed nation in this country that provides gender-affirming care does so under very strict and rigorous standards. The right has had their magnifying glasses on the institution of, trans-affirming care, never before lately. If there was actually a bunch of malpractice going on, there would be lawsuits and massive news stories that you would not be able to fucking ignore out the fucking wazoo. Libs of TikTok wouldn't be making mountains out of molehills in every single post. They would actually have, like, these right-wing propaganda figures would actually cite some bad outcome if it actually happened. The detransitioners that go online and claim that they're an example of, like, the bad outcomes of being trans always end up being something like, here's a good example. That guy, the guy who was balding and complaining about what testosterone did to him, the trans guy who claimed he's detransitioning, guess what? He later went on to say, after going viral for being a detransitioner, he later went on to say that he feels he's too deep in it now, so he's just going to keep on taking the testosterone. And on top of that, not only that, it wasn't the testosterone that made him go bald, it was actually, like, he already had a pre-existing condition that was causing him to bald before taking testosterone and transitioning. And so it was a complete grift, just a complete ploy to go viral on social media in a time where doing that kind of thing would allow you to do so. So to be clear, that this is not a thing that's happening. There are not trans people who are, like, accidentally transing themselves, okay? I understand, because I once had this concern. I understand this concern, right? Like, the idea that these changes are irreversible. What if somebody regrets it and they're stuck in the wrong body for the rest of their lives? How much must that suck, right? Well, for one, that is how trans people feel right now. Like, right now, trans people feel how you worry they'll feel if they regret the surgery. And two, trans affirming surgery regret rates are, like, ridiculously low. Like, a kidney transplant, a heart surgery, a spinal tap, all of these things are extremely invasive, extremely, like, if you watched these procedures, you would be wincing and, like, looking away. Like, all of these procedures are just as irreversible, invasive, potentially harmful to the body if things go wrong, and all these other things, right? As gender-affirming surgeries are. Hell, we even do these surgeries on kids, unlike, gender-affirming surgeries. And yet no one gets upset about them. No one worries about the regret rate of a kidney transplant or a heart transplant, because these issues haven't been politicized. Nobody is, like, politicized heart transplants as this demonic thing. I mean, I guess Jehovah's Witnesses have, but they don't really have much of a... They don't really have much political pull these days. But my point is that, like, as I mentioned with the hyperfixation on, like, the idea that gay people and trans people make their identity their entire personality, you only think that because when you meet gay and trans people, you're paying attention for that. If you pay attention for the same thing with straight and cis people, you'll find there's no difference, because believe it or not, your sexuality, who you're attracted to, and your gender identity are actually pretty fundamental aspects of who you are. They're not everything, but they're like a pretty big chunk of, like, the categories that you fall into as a person, and I feel like that's going to be part of your personality, but people only look for it when it's a gay person or a trans person, and then they make a big deal about it if they mention it too much,
Again, I didn't understand that. I don't understand why, if someone comes over to you and says, hey, can I please have, for example, clozapine, you don't just give it to them. You don't say, okay, if that's going to make you happy. You say, why do you need antipsychotics? What's happening? Well, I'm experiencing dissociation.
The point being that, like, trans people, by a certain age, and I'm not speaking for every trans person, but if they're questioning their gender identity at a young age, typically by, fairly young, they're going to be about as sure of their gender identity being not the one they were assigned at birth as, you or I are. I'm speaking to the YouTuber. You or I are about being cisgender, meaning not trans. Like, I know I'm a guy. I've known I was a guy since I was, as long as I can remember. I've never questioned being a guy. I've never, wondered, oh, am I not? I've never been unsure. I knew at a very young age, if I had been born a girl and had the same mind, the same thoughts as a kid, I think that would be pretty sure that I would be a trans guy, right? Like, and that's pretty much the experience described by many trans people, right? She mentioned being viewed as trans medicalist. There are trans people who do not experience gender dysphoria, which I know does sound very odd and very, strange, maybe counterintuitive. In most cases, transitioning is the treatment to gender dysphoria, which is a mental condition that causes suffering to people who, were basically assigned the wrong gender at birth. However, there are people who do not feel dysphoria with the gender identity they were assigned at birth, but feel better and feel more fit and comfortable with a different gender identity, usually like a non-binary gender identity. It's not that they're upset being referred to or being seen as or with the gender identity they were assigned at birth, but they feel more comfortable as a different gender identity. And that's completely different than having gender dysphoria and going into a clinic and getting prescribed hormones and stuff, but you're still trans. The definition of transgender is somebody who identifies as a different gender than the one they were assigned at birth. Period. That is the definition. That doesn't even mention gender dysphoria. It's not a needed thing for being trans.
I'm experiencing voices, I'm experiencing intense, 2 or more sensational hallucinations. Okay, well, first of all, we need to refer you. We need to refer you to a psychiatrist. We need to refer you to a medical professional in order for that to be diagnosed to ensure the best treatment. Not treatment first, and then maybe...
I kind of got lost in what she's saying here, but it goes... Not without saying, actually. It really shouldn't go without saying it. It goes much so with saying that the overwhelming medical consensus on trans identity is that it's valid and that affirming trans identity is good. Yeah, this idea that, we need to be super concerned about the negatives of affirming trans identity is like saying we need to be super concerned about the possible negative effects of eating an apple and going for a morning run every day. It's like, I guess we could, but it's like... Really? You really want to focus our time, energy, and resources on that?
Diagnosis later, or not even a diagnosis. I have never been taught. I don't understand why that is. If someone comes over to you and says that they need an insulin pen, you ask them why is that, and then you run the correct test.
No. Okay. If someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, I need an insulin pen," you don't ask them why. You give them the insulin pen. What the fuck are you talking about? No. Insulin isn't a drug. It's not a recreational drug. You don't get high off insulin. It is literally only useful for saving someone's life. What a terrible example. You're out on the street and you're walking down the road and someone comes up to you and is like, "Oh my god, do you have an insulin pen? I'm diabetic and I'm fucking gonna pass out. I need insulin." And she's like, "Why?" No, you immediately go for that insulin because you were literally on a ticking timetable. Jesus Christ, no. I think there's a certain level of trust you can have in somebody to understand what's wrong with them physically if they're hurt, and you might need to trust them and provide medical care. Listen, I was a lifeguard for a while. I got Red Cross certified and all that shit, okay? I'm not saying I'm a doctor or nothing like that, but... That's a pretty basic thing is if somebody comes up to you panicked and says, I have if it's insulin, they have a condition, right? You don't question them. You give them the fucking EpiPen. They could have an allergic reaction to something you don't know. Their throat could be swelling shut and you can't see it. You give them the fucking EpiPen or the insulin or whatever it may be. Insulin's $35 now? Hell yeah. Based. Yeah, the guy who trolled Eli Lilly ended up making it happen.
In order to diagnose the problem first, and then treat them in order to make them the best version of themselves, the healthiest and the most happy. And I don't understand why now that is such a big controversial issue. Let's take another thing. In my second degree and my master's in clinical neuropsychiatry, I was taught to never simply medicate a patient, to never simply start treatment of pharmaceuticals before intensive therapy hasn't been carried out for months at least.
Okay. I'm sorry, but you're one person in the entire body of medical info and evidence on trans identity, I'm pretty sure she's like talking about trans people right now, is that they're valid and that the best treatment to gender dysphoria is to affirm the identity. I mean, I can give some examples if needed. I could provide some examples, just a few. Like nothing too crazy, just a few examples. I know that the American Psychoanalytical Association, the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, all of these back up the idea that gender and sex are not the same thing. They back up the fact that the best treatment for gender dysphoria is affirming the gender identity of that trans person that they identify with, providing them with everything they need to transition, like physically if they choose to, providing them with what they need to socially transition, and even just having the support and the affirmation of one friend or family member significantly decreases the famously high suicide and depression rates that transgender people have. So the idea that like there's just people walking into gender clinics without getting any like checkups or therapy or getting talked to and just walking out with hormones, absurd. Completely absurd. The reason why this woman presumably got like a negative response to being concerned about that is because her concern isn't real. Her concern is a made-up scenario that was created by transphobes to make trans people sound scary and to make like trans-affirming care sound scary. Does this get more interesting later on?
To think about the things I was saying, that the menace of society, who keeps it running? My dad gets up at 4 a.m. to go to work, even though he has been retired for years and he doesn't need to work. But he wants to because he finds a passion in his work and he thinks he's, giving something back to the world by doing that and fixing.
Yeah, your dad's cucked. I'm sorry, but like wage slaving for a company that's only paying you a fraction of the actual value you're providing to it and thinking that you're making the world a better place by doing it and just absolutely wage slaving loyally to a company that doesn't give a fuck about you is not... I don't know what the state of Polish like capitalism is, but I imagine it's basically that, like basically everywhere else. So that just sounds cucked to me. Conservatives, well, on one hand, idealizing this idea of like bootstraps, out in the wild, off-grid sort of life, they also heavily value the idea of basically putting yourself through the ringer and subjecting yourself to the most rigorous discipline, hard work, and hard times to supposedly round yourself out and make yourself a more, well-rounded, well-experienced, good character person. But in reality, most of the people who peddle this shit themselves were literally born with a silver spoon in their mouths, never worked for anything in their lives, and are just telling a bunch of people who were born and are still far less fortunate than them, they just need to work harder. They just gotta work harder and they could be just like you. It's all bullshit. Work harder for less pay, big brain.
Things and, helping his family. He feels useful. He keeps the world running, and so do a lot of men. What about the men that are fighting in wars and things like that?
Oh,
do
boy.
You hate them too?
Wait.
And I was so...
Are we getting into, like, the man hate shit? Okay, maybe she doesn't hate men. Okay, sorry. I started this segment talking about the TERFs and the Jodi Arias types who hate men and, like, idolize women who, like, murder their ex-boyfriends and stuff like that. She doesn't seem to be one of those people. So if she's watching this, I want her to know it's those women, those man-hating, misandrist, evil ladies who hate trans people and are like one of the most headstrong flag bearers for the anti-trans movement at the moment. I'm just saying, that's the company you're throwing in with this whole like trans skepticism, right-wing, path you're taking. Because now you're arguing against misandry, and the trans, like the TERF movement, as we call them, have misandry in droves. They are built on misandry. They are misandrous to their cores. They hate men. They fucking despise men. Okay, I don't need to hear her like dick ride men. What next?
And show interest in the opposite gender. They are trans, and it is shocking and upsetting and incredibly hard.
Wait, what?
Young children, if they are expressing hobbies and show interest in the opposite gender, they are trans, and it is shocking and upsetting and...
She's misspeaking a lot in this, okay? Alright. It is true that heavy interest in non-traditionally, like, masculine or feminine hobbies and toys and just things like that in a child may be indicative of them being trans. But the tell-all, the thing that, like, makes that happen, that makes parents ideally take their kids to a clinic where they can be spoken to and talked to, is they go to their parents and say, I think I'm a girl, or I think I'm a boy, or I don't feel like I'm a boy, or I don't think I'm a girl, or whatever. Like, something more direct than just like, oh, Timmy likes to play with Barbies. There are so many Timmys out there that like to play with Barbies, okay? And their parents are not taking them to gender clinics because they think they might be trans. Because it's normal for girls to play with boys' toys, and boys to play with girls' toys when they're kids. It's completely normal. It happens all the time. There are plenty of girls who are tomboys and boys who are just kind of into girly stuff, and it's normal. Ideally, their parents don't push them away from what they're interested in. There are a lot of conservative parents out there that insist their son must be interested in masculine stuff and insist their daughter must be interested in feminine stuff. That's mostly conservatives, but just that interest, just that, you know, typical divergence alone does not typically send parents with their kids to the gender clinics, okay? And at the gender clinics, there are medically trained psychiatrists and therapists that speak to the kids to determine whether or not it's, you know, just kids being kids, or if there might be a case of gender dysphoria there. This is a completely made-up narrative that I hope she just genuinely believes, and this video will clear up. We're not watching all of it because it's very long, and this is already an hour long at this point. But, like, it's hitting a lot of very basic, like, misunderstanding of modern politics points here, you know?
Experience, and I don't believe the things that you are saying and pushing for, and they are completely shunned. They are either harassed, they are made fun of, and so again, this very inclusive community.
Well, okay, so you're doing it again. You're making me think you might not be honest. When the left says that it is inclusive, it is not inclusive of people generally speaking, like, oh, no matter what your beliefs are, you will be included. It's inclusive of people in the sense that if you were born, say, disabled, or of a non-normative sexuality, or your gender identity is different from that which you were born with, or any number of other things you can't really control, that's like, doesn't make you a bad person or anything, it just makes you different, and thus a target to those that like to harass, belittle, and take advantage of different people. It is literally just those people being included, right? That is what it means by inclusive. Not inclusive of people who believe those people shouldn't exist. Because many people don't believe those people should be allowed to exist. There's a lot of people who don't think disabled people should be allowed to exist. A lot of people now who don't think trans people should be allowed to exist or gay people should be allowed to exist. Those people should not, like, you should not expect a gay person to be completely fine conversing with someone who thinks that they should be, like, lynched. Okay? It's a very privileged position to be able to say, I think you as a insert minority should engage with someone who wants you dead and exterminated. Like, come on. I think it's a little understandable why they might be a little touchy, a little bit, you know, antagonistic towards those with that particular differing viewpoint.
Who are saying things like, listen to trans people, and not listening to trans people who have said, hey, I don't agree with you. They are now the enemy. how does that work? I cannot personally, I couldn't defend that argument.
To be fair, the listen to trans people point is really stupid, and this is why I wish woke schools would stop saying listen to blank people, like, as an argument, because it just leads to conservatives saying shit like this, or even well-meaning people saying shit like this and believing shit like this. No. The actual point that lefties mean when they say that, ideally, is listen to people from that group explaining their personal lived experience in the context of the actual truth. Like, if you want to learn about trans rights and the trans experience and facts about, like, the studies and data around trans identity, you should first look at the data and the science. That's where you're going to pull your primary info from. But if you want to humanize that and make it not just numbers and stats and data and graphs, you humanize that by listening to lived experience, anecdotal stories, right? You sort of humanize the data, right? Yeah, Sockdon Left got a literal boner when they heard me say data. Just absolute, anyway. You substantiate and humanize that data with lived experience, not substantiate. You personify that data and give it meaning with someone's lived experience, with someone's story, right? And in the case of someone like Blair White, as I've done in a recent segment, is a known liar. Like, you should watch I think I did it in my last stream, but the video itself will be airing on my channel soon. I did a segment about Blair White in the last stream where we just basically went over everything she's ever provably, knowingly lied about. And I don't mean like, oh, she lied about a thing that happened. I mean, like, she lied directly to her audience and hid the truth knowingly and actively poorly hid the truth. Like, things like that. About dangerous stuff, too. Not just insignificant things, but dangerous things she's lied about. Hey, Holly. Yeah, I went over all of that, so definitely, please go check that out. But, like, Blair White will tell her lived experience and say, oh, listen to me, I'm a trans person, but none of what she says lines up with what data or studies or any of the body of facts and science we have on these issues suggests. And she's also a very unreliable source, right? And this tends to be the case with many of the people that individuals like this will say, why don't you listen to them? Well, because they're typically known liars and propagandists and grifters like Blair White or Candace Owens. They use their identity as a shield or as sort of a platform through which they can use an authoritative, voice on certain issues. But just because they're part of that identity doesn't make them an expert on it. And oftentimes, their supposed lived experience is either completely provably false, like in the case of Blair White and Candace Owens. Blair White has literally lied on the record about what age she knew she was trans years ago, when when being anti-trans was far less like dominant online and he had to be more mask on. Blair White went on Joe Rogan and said she knew she was trans when she was 5 years old. She knew she was a girl. Nowadays, though, she's got to go, like, it's the line has been drawn to be way more transphobic, so to be the pick-me she has to be, she's now had to, like, go back on that and try to, like, people have brought it up and said, how could you say that you knew you were trans at 5 years old? What are you saying, that you were groomed? You were groomed? Do you think kids should be groomed? Like, so she had to walk that back because her fans were like, uh-oh, I have to, so she lied to, like, walk back something she'd previously told the truth about. Like, you can't always trust the lived experience of someone from a particular marginalized group. It's why I don't like the left saying that. Well, let's jump ahead again and see if we can... Let's listen to her closing statements.
Hope that you have a wonderful life, and I hope that you see and consume the content that you really enjoy, and you support the creators that you really do enjoy, even if it's not me anymore. But in the name of being able to do the things that I want to do and be true to myself and not constantly make content that I'm unhappy with, but I'm doing it just for views or whatever that may be, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to just... I just want to be able to talk to you guys about the things I find interesting. So that's what I'm going to start doing and continue doing, because I have been doing that. I think you have all realised. So yeah, if you would like to share your thoughts with me, although I'm probably not going to see them, let me know down below, and I hope that you have a wonderful day, and whatever happens and whatever you feel like is the right choice for you, please remember to stay hydrated as usual, and remember to take your medication.
I don't like this toxic positivity stuff. Do you guys know what toxic positivity is? It's basically this, like, response to negative ideas, things, people, whatever it may be, with like this insistence that you must remain positive, right? It's to the extent that it's toxic, right? Yeah, like the Bucket of Bummer guy did, the streamer who did. Okay, I need to turn off. I gotta go into the settings, and we're gonna turn off that focus, that autofocus, and look how smooth my movement is now as well. There we go. Yeah, listen, I really hate the toxic positivity stuff. I really, really do. It's always been one of the most frustrating things about, like, this type of person that I'll run into online. This insistence that we have to be accepting and open to all these ideas. But a lot of these ideas are very harmful, and even allowing them to proliferate is harmful. Now, because we're kind of moving into this age of people getting into politics that don't know jack shit, honestly, no offense, but I mean, you know, a lot of people are getting into politics these days and don't really know a lot. It's worth bringing up this very basic idea that I guess a lot of people now, I guess, wouldn't know, so it's worth bringing up. This is a very fundamental concept, the paradox of tolerance. I'll just read the basic Wikipedia definitions so that you guys get the most well-rounded understanding of it. The paradox of tolerance states that if a society is tolerant, you could also replace society with social space or platform. The paradox of tolerance states that if a society is tolerant without limit, its ability to be tolerant is eventually seized or destroyed by the intolerant. Karl Popper described it as the seemingly self-contradictory idea that in order to maintain a tolerant society, the society must retain the right to be intolerant of intolerance. It's a little bit complicated, but that's the fundamental idea. Think about, a good example is, of course, freedom of speech. You know, a Homo sapiens says this can apply to freedom of speech in chat, and is quite correct, right? Everybody online tends to be super free speech absolutist, right? They love free speech. They don't want there to be any censorship or any restrictions of what you can say. But if you have a society like that, there's nothing that stops bad actors from maliciously using that freedom of speech to take power and then destroying freedom of speech. So in order for freedom of speech to exist, you kind of have to have restrictions on speech that make it so those that would destroy it can't take power and destroy it, because then it ceases to be free. But people would say that's not actual free speech, so then the argument is that true free speech is always just going to be a flash in the pan. And then you've got the super retards who claim that actually, no, the best ideas will always rise to the top like cream. And it's like, well, that's not true, and historically has not happened many times. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you guys know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon, comment down below, follow my social media, donate, all these things. I really do appreciate your support, no matter how you offer it to me. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.